You're asking me if I drop to striker. All I do is drop to striker.
I've got good news for you. Widow Anchor's at 1.
Really?
Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. I just got back from a wonderful time at the Pro Play Games event where I got my Evenly Matched signed by MCole40, my Twin Twisters signed by Triff, and my Heart signed by a top 4 match that you are not going to want to miss. Unfortunately, the one thing I did not get was to cast a single match of Sky Striker. I originally laughed off Doomsday Prophets who claimed the recent ban list would be the ruin of Ray, but should I have been taking Zodiac? Seriously? Let's take a look at Sky Striker. So here's the list, and it doesn't look that different. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, come on, it's Striker! You'd have to be living under a rock for the past 18 months to have missed out on this deck, or at the very least, play on Dawn of a New Era. Striker's unparalleled access to searchers, extremely flexible pool of powerful spells, and consistent openings have made it a mainstay of the metagame for the last year and a half. It survived several limits to its critical cards and multiple manglings by a metagame completely mobilized against it. Still, it's persevered, which is why I felt that the recent limit of Widow Anchor, their third best search target, wasn't going to spell the end for the archetype. Unfortunately, after playing a few games with the post-BANLIST best deck, I now appreciate the perspective of Doomsday Preppers. Without Widow Anchors, the deck is notably less resistant to interaction, clearly less capable of presenting lethal, and unfortunately, unable to optimally perform the Shizuku Shuffle, a casualty from which I will never recover. It turns out that having a single must-search spell, multi-roll, is far less devastating than having two, and without extremely lucky draws or a hand that includes multiple engages, you're unlikely to be able to find both your Spellbook of Judgment and your Quick Play Snatch Steal turn 1. While Striker pilots are well known to be the biggest-brained Yu-Gi-Oh! Players in the world, I doubt even they can manage to make a decision. That ability lies far beyond the grasp of any Yugist. We've updated our list as best we can, maxing out on Shark Cannon and playing an additional Eagle booster for the Pseudo Shuffle in place of our Widowed Widows. Finally, we're on Veilers over Impermanence, as this once $100 million deck is rapidly approaching budget status. So with that, let's get into the card by card. Firstly, our monsters. 3 Ray, 3 Ash, and 3 Veiler. For spells, we're on 3 Engage, still untouched. 3 Shark Cannon, 3 Area 0, 2 Eagle Booster, then our voluntary one-ofs, 1 Afterburners, 1 Jamming Wave, and 1 Hercules Base. After that are our involuntary one-ofs, Drones, Anchor, and Multi-Roll. For generics, we've got Rhoda, Upstart, Terraforming, Mystic Mine, its secondary target, 2 Cosmics, I like these over MST right now for Orchest reasons, and 2 Foolish Burial Goods, preceding the cards I never want to ever draw, Metal Foes Fusion, and Double or Nothing. For traps, we're on 3 There Can Be Only One, and 1 Metaverse. In the extra deck, we're playing both halves of the Utopia combo to net us wins against decks with more resilience, a sentence that brings a tear to my eye. Topologic Bomber, Nightmares Unicorn and Phoenix, Hita, 3 Hayate, 3 Shizuku, 2 Kana, and a Kagari. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Evil Eye, an incredibly capable control deck provided our opponent is ever allowed to resolve the effect of Cerzio. I don't intend to permit that to happen, and thankfully our grip is about as good as it gets in a world without Widow Anchors. Let's see how the first turn plays out. We'll lead with a copy of Upstart Goblin, which finds a Metaverse off the top. Afterwards, we're going to activate Area 0, activate Engage for a copy of Multi-Roll, set the Multi-Roll, Normal Summon Ray, and then tag out in response to the Area 0 activation. Off the top, we find nothing! Ugh. Well, we'll Kagari back this copy of Engage, activate it to get a copy of Widow Anchor, and then go to Shizuku, performing the Pseudo Shuffle at end step to reset a copy of Eagle Booster and the Engage from Graveyard. Our opponent's going to draw for turn, they'll lead with a copy of Terraforming, that gets a domain to hand. They'll Pot of Duality, and they find not a lot of good stuff off the top. They'll take the Phantasme, which might be a problem in the future. Thankfully, we do have the Ash for this first domain, so they're content to pass it back. We probably can't OTK, but we can drown them in advantage. We'll Area 0, then chain the Metaverse that the Area 0 is targeting. We're going to add another Area 0 to hand and find off the top, well, at least something. We've got the drones. We'll activate Area 0 and drones, so we now have 3 in Graveyard for a safe Engage for 2. Afterwards, we're going to go into Hayate, attack directly to send an engage to the graveyard for future multi-rolling, then end on Shizuku once again. Our opponent's going to go into Phantasme, which is a problem because now our set Widow Anchor is a lot worse. They draw for turn and fire off another duality. This time, unfortunately, they do find action in the form of Surziel. They're going to normal summon it. Of course, you can't Phantom Ash Blossom, so I go ahead and fire it off there. They do have the Evil Eye of Selene already. Will Widow Anchor, prompting the Phantasme response, and that's not great. They're going to activate Surziel. We'll activate Eagle Booster, so we're not going to lose our Shizuku yet. They'll attack directly, doing, 300 points of damage, and then 600 from the Phantasme, before activating Cosmic Cyclone, ruining my attempt to reset the Widow Anchor. Okay, we got to figure another way out of this one. We're going to lead with a copy of Engage, which draws us a whole bunch of cards, one of which is a Cosmic Cyclone. And without the Selene, this card is effectively toothless. They activate its effect, so we now no longer have to worry about removing it. We're going to go to Shizuku and then prompt the Phantasme. I just want cards out of their hand at this point. We'll Hercules base our monster, and afterwards we'll activate Area 0, finding nothing. We'll activate Engage again, and then set another Area 0 and an Eagle Booster. This brings the Phantasme down 1500 and allows us to draw a card off of Hercules base, then Foolish Burial Goods, activate for another Foolish Burial Goods, and set 2. In standby phase, our opponent's own monster is going to destroy itself because there's no other targets on their side of the field, and we have the effect veiler for their Medusa. I don't want to deal with another domain. We should be able to win from this position quite easily. We'll draw for turn, we find another Ray. We're going to activate Area 0, targeting our Hercules base again. Nothing! Come on! Okay, well, I'll draw another card if you so insist, and we'll pass it back to our opponent. They draw a Glass spell, whose effect they will activate. I think I'm okay with that. For turn, we draw a copy of There Can Be Only One. Please, can we find something off the top? And, okay, Shark Cannon does it. That's going to trigger Hercules base, which allows us, of course, to put the Kagari back. We're going to go into Kagari to get a copy of Engage. They're going to Phantasme, but we have the Ash. There will not be a next turn, so it doesn't matter that it sits in the hand. We'll activate Engage for a copy of Widow Anchor. We'll activate Widow Anchor and Shark Cannon before they concede. Alright, that's enough railing rogue. It's time to move on to the meta. Our opponent for Game 2 is playing Thunder Dragon, previously a fantastic striker matchup. Let's see if we can still count on conventional wisdom. We are going first, and our hand is not particularly good. We're going to go ahead and activate Area 0, targeting our set card, and look at that, a multi-roll off the top. Well, it doesn't matter if there's only one if you keep drawing it. We're going to pop our copy of Area 0 to get a copy of Ray. We'll then activate another Area 0, activate Metalfoes Fusion for a Terraforming, getting a Mystic Mind to hand before going to Shizuku and getting Impermanenced. Okay, now we have a problem, and that problem is we have no access to Engage yet. Our opponent's going to activate Pot of Desires. Afterwards, they're going to activate Allure of Darkness, and, ooh, looks like they've bricked as well. We have another chance at this. Okay, let's lead with a copy of Multi-Roll, destroying our own copy of Area 0 so we can pop our opponent's card before we go into a Hayate. They get to Phant, which means they're likely unbricked, but so are we. We're going to send an Engage to Graveyard before making Kagari and using its effect to return the Engage to hand, drawing a couple of cards in the process, one of which is Widow Anchor. We'll set 2 cards, then at end step, shuffle back 2 cards and add a copy of Engage to hand. For turn, our opponent's going to draw a Roar. They will normal summon a copy of Solar, sending a copy of Roar to Graveyard, trying to bring it back with a copy of Thunder Dragon Hawk. We will flip up a copy of There Can Be Only One in response, and then effect veiler the follow-up Nightmare Phoenix. After that, they're going to special summon a Thunder Dragon Duo, prompting the Widow Anchor from us. In main phase 2, they'll activate Thunder Dragon Fusion so they can use Titan in conjunction with Roar to finally destroy this copy of There Can Be Only One, but when we reset this copy of Widow Anchor, they realize that the game is over. So, it's time for Game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Salamangreat, one of the best decks that did not receive any hits in the previous ban list. Let's see if we can still hold our own. Our hand is not particularly good. It doesn't have any access to our linear play, but it does have a ton of hand traps. They're going to Buffalo into Balinx, they'll activate both effects, getting a copy of Sanctuary to hand, and then discarding a Foxy to draw 2 cards. They'll then use Foxy's Grave effect and reborn the Spinny they just sent to go into Mirage Stalio. We'll Ash Blossom this effect, but unfortunately they can still special the Gazelle from hand, sending a Rage. Afterwards, they'll link summon a copy of Sunlight Wolf. I negate this Sunlight Wolf because while they may add back the Rage, which they do 1 second later, I don't have a problem with that with so many pieces of Spell and Trap Destruction in my hand. I wasn't expecting 3, but we hit it on the first try. We'll activate Foolish Burial Goods and Fusion for, ooh, a Ray! That's a good one. If we attack into Balinx and then tag out into a copy of Hayate, we can actually eat the Balinx entirely, but unfortunately they have a copy of Enemy Controller. At least one more turn before we find Engage, folks. Our opponent's going to activate Spinny. me. They'll activate the effect of Sunlight Wolf. Shoot, there comes the Gazelle. Before they link summon a Transcode Talker and bring back a Sunlight Wolf. We are taking a ton of damage here. We're going to send a copy of Engage and bring back the Ray. We'll then tag out from the Ray into a Kagari, adding back the Engage. And really, we just have to survive. Taking 500 and 1,000 is fine. And then in main phase 2, they'll set one card. For turn, we draw a copy of Metaverse. That's not great. We're going to activate Engage, an Upstart Goblin into, ooh, a second Engage! Don't mind if I do. We'll normal summon a Ray before going into Kana, and then Shizuku. We'll set 2, and then at end step, get Impermanenced. Come on. Okay, one more turn without anything relevant. They find another Impermanence off the top. They're going to Heat Leo, targeting my set card, but oh, woe is you! It's a Metaverse, which is going to buy us at least a turn as we activate Mystic Mine. They'll go into another Heat Leo and kind of telegraph an infinite Impermanence by putting it in the same column. We'll go into Hayate, attack directly. That allows us to send a copy of Shark Cannon to Graveyard. Then at end step, we'll activate Shizuku, and come on! I just want to add a card from my deck to my hand. That's fine. For turn, they're going to draw a copy of Phantasme, a little late on this one. They'll go into Hita and Nightmare Phoenix, destroying the Mystic Mine, but simplifying their board state in the process. We'll activate Area 0, we'll send a copy of Metal Foes Fusion off of this Foolish Burial Goods, we'll activate Area 0 onto a copy of Ash Blossom. This is a little greedy, but oh my goodness, have we ever found multi-roll. We'll Shark Cannon a couple of times, getting both Transcode and Heat Leo, before we activate the effect of multi-roll in order to destroy our own Area 0 and get a copy of Ray from deck. This allows us to effectively clear the board, and with one card in hand, an infinite impermanence, it's unlikely our opponent is coming back. They'll concede. Unsure exactly how Game 1 ended up that well. Game 2, however, looks far less promising for a simple reason. Our opponent has a Salamangreat Rage that we don't know about. Otherwise, our hand is very good. Let's see how this one plays out. Our opponent's going to normal summon a copy of Foxy to go into Balinx. That Balinx is going to add a copy of Sanctuary to hand, which will allow that Foxy to be special summoned alongside a Sea Archiver, making Mirage Stalio. They'll special summon a copy of Gazelle from deck, sending a copy of Jack Jaguar before link summoning 2 copies of Sunlight Wolf, reborning the Jack Jaguar at link point in order to add the Gazelle back, going into Balinx, setting 1 card and passing it back. For turn, we draw a copy of Veiler. We'll activate Spell Mining Cave, then Engage for a copy of Multi-Roll. We'll activate Multi-Roll, targeting Ray. Our opponent's going to Rage in response. And this is really bad news, okay? They'll destroy everything relevant on our side of the board. We can add the Engage back. We'll Shark Cannon our opponent's monster, and gosh, they even have the Ash Blossom. Well, we'll go into Shizuku and add a copy of Area 0 at end step, but things are looking dire. Our opponent's going to activate Sunlight Wolf and go to Heat Leo, spinning our remaining card. I'll activate the Metaverse in response, but unfortunately I'm only playing 1 copy of Mystic Mine, so it'll have to get an Area 0. They'll activate Gazelle. I see the writing on the wall, so I'll concede. So Salamangreat Rage is clearly one of the very few ways that Salamangreat can outgrind almost immediately and run away with games. For Game 3, they've drawn it, but we are going first. We're going to lead with a copy of Reinforcement of the Army, then a Terraforming. We'll activate Area 0, then normal summon a Ray, activate the effective Area 0, targeting the Ray. We'll tag out for a Kana, and what do we find off the top? But ooh, an Engage and a multi-roll. Well, I'll take the Engage. We'll Eagle Booster our own monster to gain 100 life points, and that's time in the round, and so our Engage draws 2. We'll go into Kagari, adding back Engage, then we'll activate multi-roll, engaging for a copy of Widow Anchor, setting a whole bunch of cards and going into Shizuku. At end step, we'll set 2 cards, then add a copy of Engage from deck to hand. A pretty fine start, if I do say so myself. Our opponent's going to lead with a fine start as well. A Flame Buffalo into a copy of Balinx, discarding a copy of Foxy. That's like the 3rd game in a row they have Gazelle turn 1. They're going to Foxy back the Foxy to go into a copy of Sunlight Wolf while destroying our copy of Multi-Roll. That's unfortunate. It's going to really hamper our grind game. They're going to a Heat Leo. Thankfully, they target the Widow Anchor that we can chain in order to take it. Afterwards, they'll activate Will of the Salamangreat, but we do have a Cosmic Cyclone for that card specifically. Afterwards, they're going to link summon a Balinx, activate Jack Jaguar's effect, and then link summon a copy of Hita. Hita's going to bring back a copy of Kagari, who is fire, to make Heat Leo, which will banish our copy of Engage. That's really bad news. We'll go into Ray, they'll set 1 card, and at end step, we'll activate Shizuku's effect for a copy of Jamming Waves. For turn, we draw a copy of Eagle Booster. We'll lead with the Jamming Waves. Our opponent will activate the Roar in response. We knew they had it. We'll activate Engage. We get an Afterburners, which we will activate. Our opponent will Rage in response, and we'll chain the card that's being raged on our own copy of Shizuku. We'll Area 0, targeting our Shizuku, and we do find a Hercules base, but remember it can't be destroyed. We'll equip it with the Hercules base and attack into our opponent's copy of Heat Leo. Unfortunately for us, they do have a Balinx in the graveyard. We'll activate There Can Be Only One. Our opponent's going to run their own monster into ours, so in main phase 2, they can debug for a copy of Salamangreat Foxy. That's bad news because it means that There Can Be Only One isn't long for this world. We'll target our set Metal Foes Fusion off the top, and nothing. Come on, that's fine. I'm content to draw a card here. We'll do just that. that, and then in main phase 2, activate Eagle Booster so we can set a Cosmic Cyclone. Just a little bit more relevant. Our opponent's going to go ahead and activate the Grave Effect of Foxy, discarding Foxy to destroy There Can Be Only One. They'll go into Mirage Stalio, getting a Falco. They'll then link summon a copy of Sunlight Wolf, triggering the effect of Falco to reset their copy of Rage. Thank God we set this copy of Cosmic Cyclone. We'll get back a Ray, they'll activate Jack Jaguar and special summon it to point. They'll add a copy of Gazelle to hand, we'll activate Ray's effect for Arcana, and then unfortunately we will be losing our Ray access here. They'll go into Heat Leo, targeting our set card. It is Hornet Drones, we will activate it in response. We can always make a link monster next turn. We'll activate Cosmic Cyclone in the end step on the card we know is Rage before drawing. Next we're going to link summon a copy of Hayate, we'll activate Area 0 on our set card, and finally we find something. Thankfully it is Engage. We'll draw a card, and then we'll draw a couple more, a Shark Cannon, and another There Can Be Only One. We're going to banish the remaining Bailings from our opponent's graveyard. Our opponent is going to unfortunately have the infinite impermanence for our copy of Shizuku. That means we won't be able to walk over the Heat Leo just yet, but this There Can Be Only One locks them. Our opponent is going to attack into our copy of Hayate, then use Sanctuary, so their own monster goes to the graveyard, and they are free to activate Foxy's effect again. Wow, that's ingenious. They'll bring back Falco, then normal summon a copy of Foxy so they can go into Sunlight Wolf and trigger the effect of Gazelle from hand. This will also trigger the effect of Sunlight Wolf so they can start putting monsters back in the extra before they run out. We'll activate Shark Cannon, chaining it to this copy of Heat Leo, and I think we've just found our window out of this game. We're going to normal summon a copy of Ray, then we'll overlay for Utopia Double, adding a copy of Double or Nothing to hand before attacking into this copy of Heat Leo, negating our own attack, activating Double or Nothing, and doing 7,700 damage. So we're back with the deck, and yes, we did win the best of 3, but we didn't win it very hard. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, the deck is still pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable calling it the best deck, but it's still clearly head and shoulders above any rogue strategy and very capable of mangling meta. 2, the inclusion of an additional Shark Cannon is nowhere near as painful as I had originally expected. As this week's Noid Top should show you, banishing cards is at an all-time premium, so replacing Striker's best spell with one that's conditionally just as powerful isn't a big loss. And 3, the Utopia Double package, semi-standard before this list, does a good job of winning games that you would otherwise be ground out of. Previously, you were never the beatdown, but isolating cases where you're trying to simplify the game state to one 10,000 attack boy is now a skill Striker pilots must master. And the cons. 1, it no longer has a coherent win condition. Now previously Striker would take games by getting to a position where its opponents would be completely depleted of resources, then making plays with Shark Cannon, drones, and Widow Anchor to assemble lethal. With your one Widow Anchor now almost always on negation duty, that has changed. Now you have to chip in with Hayate before making a single link play, or opt for Utopia Double. 2, it bricks more often. Sure, it's not like Widow Anchor was a linear play starter, but it was an easy way to get spells in the graveyard and facilitated a higher density of cards for Area 0. It's hard to measure, but it certainly feels less consistent. And 3, your turn 1 engages are now an actual skill test. I know, from a gameplay perspective, this is a good thing, but having to choose between interaction or recursion out of the starting gate is hard for a deck that was previously good because it had both. All in all, it's fine. The list may have bumped it out of best deck, but it's far from fatal. As always, the true strength of Striker has always been in the skill of its pilots, so smart, seasoned players will probably still push through to top cuts. So that's that. While I appreciate all of my viewers, a special thanks to my patrons, especially Crispy, Sir Tachyon, Utterly J, Mika Reichman, Distrin, Lucas Geardas, Adam Trevino, Second, Lieutenant Labcoat, Fiore, Meatmoto27, Burrito Man 93, Adrian Bra, Adam Sunquist, Isaac Jackson, and Donnie Fillerup. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you want to be part of the process, follow me on Twitch as well. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.